You're not cut out for this. There are so many better candidates. What if I fail? What will people say? These thoughts might sound familiar. If you're preparing for the SSB interview, you've likely heard these whispers of self doubt. They creep in when you least expect them. While practicing your group discussion during a mock interview or even while running your daily 2 kilometers. Let me take you into the mind of an aspirant named Sam. Sam was bright, physically fit, and had a passion for joining the Indian Army. But as the SSB date approached, the excitement in his heart started to feel like a heavy weight. He'd practiced, he'd studied, but every time he sat down to prepare, he found himself wondering, what if I'm not good enough? One night, while trying to focus on a current affairs article, Sam couldn't shake the thought, I'll never clear the group discussion. My points will sound foolish. He put the book down and stared at the ceiling, feeling overwhelmed and unsure of himself. But Sam's story is not one of failure. It's a story of how he faced self-doubt and came out stronger. And today, I'll share not just Sam's journey, but others like him, along with lessons from my own experiences to show you that self-doubt is not your enemy. It's part of your growth. Let me tell you about Priya, another SSB aspirant. Priya was someone everyone assumed would clear the SSB on her first attempt. She was confident in casual conversations, articulate in her speech, and physically fit. But when it came to the psychological tests, she froze. She told herself, what if my stories aren't good enough? What if they think I'm not leadership material? Priya's performance during her first SSB attempt reflected her inner turmoil. During the picture perception and discussion test (PPDT), she overanalyzed the picture and couldn't complete her story within the time limit. In the group discussion, she remained quiet, unable to put her points forward. When Priya came back home, she felt defeated, not because she lacked the skills, but because her self-doubt had overpowered her preparation. But here's the thing, Priya didn't stop there. She sat down, reflected on what went wrong, and decided to approach her next attempt differently. She began to see self-doubt not as a weakness, but as a signal, an indication of areas she needed to work on. To overcome self-doubt, we first need to understand its roots. Think about it. When does self-doubt hit you the hardest? Is it when you're comparing yourself to others? Is it when you feel unprepared? Or is it when you fear the outcome? Let me take you back to my own SSB journey. During my personal interview, the officer asked me, why do you think you're a good fit for the Indian Army? I froze. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because I doubted whether my answer would be good enough. That one moment of hesitation filled my mind with thoughts like, what if he thinks I'm overconfident? What if my answer sounds rehearsed? That's when I realized that self-doubt often comes from 1. Comparison, thinking others are better than you. 2. Fear of failure, focusing too much on the result. 3. Lack of clarity, not knowing your strengths. The SSB process isn't designed to find perfect candidates. It's designed to find real, honest, and determined individuals. Self-doubt isn't a sign of weakness. It's a reminder that you're stepping into something that matters deeply to you. Let me share the story of Alan, an aspirant who had failed the SSB interview twice. After his second attempt, he told me, every time I sit down to prepare, I hear this voice in my head saying, why bother? You'll fail again. Alan's inner critic was relentless. It pointed out every mistake he'd made during his previous attempts, not speaking confidently in the group discussion, overthinking the thematic apperception test, TAT, and fumbling during the command task. But here's the thing about inner critics, they're not objective. They amplify your fears and overlook your strengths. One day, during a mock PPDT session, Alan decided to confront his self doubt head on. Instead of trying to silence the voice in his head, he asked himself, "What am I really afraid of?" The answer surprised him. It wasn't failure itself that scared him, it was the fear of disappointing his parents. Once he identified this root cause, he began to work on it. He sat down with his parents, shared his fears, and realized they supported him no matter what. This clarity allowed him to approach his next attempt with renewed confidence. Arjun, the aspirant I mentioned earlier, once told me, "I realized my self doubt wasn't going to disappear on its own. I had to face it." And that's exactly what he did. Arjun began treating his preparation like a mission. He started by listing everything he doubted about himself: his communication skills, his knowledge of current affairs, his ability to handle pressure. For each point, he created a plan. He joined a local debate club to improve his speaking skills, started reading newspapers daily, and practiced mock interviews with his friends. But the biggest change came when he stopped comparing himself to others. Instead of focusing on what other aspirants were doing, he started focusing on his own growth. Every time he completed a task, whether it was writing a story for Tatty or running an extra kilometer, he celebrated it as a small victory. Over time, those small victories added up and his confidence grew. Self-doubt isn't something you overcome once and for all. It's something you learn to manage, to navigate, and to use as a tool for growth. The very fact that you doubt yourself means you care deeply about what you're pursuing. It means you're stepping into a space that challenges you. As you prepare for the SSB interview, remember this: the journey is just as important as the destination. Every moment of self doubt is an opportunity to grow. Every mistake you make is a lesson that brings you closer to your goal. And every step you take, no matter how small, is a step toward the person you're meant to become. Sam, Priya, Alan, and Arjun all faced self doubt, just like you might be facing now. But they didn't let it define them, they used it as a stepping stone, not a stumbling block. And so can you. So, the next time you hear that voice in your head saying, "You can't do this," remember, you don't have to silence it. You just have to answer it with action. Self doubt may visit you, but it doesn't have to stay.